Welcome to African American Conservatives, your source for political news and commentary from a cultural and right-of-center perspective. African American Conservatives, the soul of the conservative movement.
First up with us is Oliver McGee III. He is a teacher, a researcher, an administrator, and advisor to government, corporations, and philanthropy, appointed by former President William Jefferson Clinton. Dr. McGee is the former United States Deputy Assistant Secretary of Transportation for Technology Policy at the United States Department of Transportation. He also served as Senior Policy Analyst in the White House Office of Science and Technology Policy. He joins us tonight to discuss his book, Jumping the Aisle, How I Became a Black Republican in the Age of Obama. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me this evening.
And I apologize for our technical difficulties, so thank you for bearing with us.
Oh, my pleasure.
Now, you begin your book by repeating a question that you must hear often. Quote, even as mystifying I know you are perhaps thinking, how can a man who served under President Bill Clinton, who stuck by him in the wake of an impeachment scandal, and who helped shape Clinton's race initiative for the future, one America in the 21st century, leave a party that gave him so much, end quote. What is the answer to that question? And was answering this question what motivated you to write Jumping the Aisle, How I Became a Black Republican in the Age of Obama?
Well, Jumping the Aisle is more of a question of being the playbook as we move forward into 2016 and what I like to call the post-Obama era. When I was thinking about the thesis of the book, I was looking at the emergence of the age of Obama and, like most Americans, wondering, okay, how did we come to the age of Obama, and what was the precipice that brought us to looking at a post-racial president, the promises that were being offered, and was the nation actually looking and transcending beyond race, and was the nation becoming more united or more divided? And when I observed the world around me in looking at what I like to call the social, technological, educational, economic, and political issues, the steep issues around me, I began to see that there was a question raised. We're not necessarily becoming united. We are becoming more divided, and the aisle was getting actually not narrower but wider. And so we're finding more opportunities to jump the aisle rather than to cross the aisle. And so that was the real wake-up call for me to say, well, this might be a thesis for a book. And all I need to do is just sort of stop for a moment and just start looking at the world around me and just start paying attention to the issues. And what I found is oftentimes I'm not so sure with all of the information that we have coming at us so fast, and more importantly with talk radio and with all kinds of other issues that are actually coming around so quickly, are we actually really moving around so quickly that jumping out becomes more of a concern.
Right. Now, it's interesting that you, in the book, you make many excellent conservative points in Jumping the Aisle, and you quote people like Bastiat, yet you are obviously very proud of the Clinton administration, and you were a donor to Hillary Clinton's campaign as well. How has the Obama administration, is it to the left of the Clinton administration, which until 1994 seemed to be on a progressive course? Do you believe that Hillary Clinton, who was a senator in one of the most progressive, with one of the most progressive voting records in the Senate, would have been significantly less progressive as a president than President Obama? If so, why?
I believe that Hillary would have been a president more center-left than far-left. And she sent that signal as she was running in the primary. Oftentimes you get a sense of where a president really is going to be when you watch their campaign through the primary as they're speaking to, say, the party for which they belong. And she ran, and she was steering the party at the time, and she was warning, we need to be a more centrist party because the nation is at that particular point. She got outflanked by the emergence of the age of Obama, which really said, no, it's about a progressively strong left. And that party at the time in 2007 and 2008 heard him very, very clearly. And what she was trying to share with the party, no, we need to be prepared to be towards the center because this is where the general election is going to be. If we go too far left, we'll lose the election. Well, Obama sort of proved her right because when he was running in the general election, he raced to the center very, very quickly. You saw the same thing happening with Romney as well. Yeah. He was more of a hard conservative while he was running for the Republican nomination. Not so far right, but somewhat in that direction. But you saw him moderate his position in the general election because extreme positions cannot win in the general election. You have to be somewhere either center left or center right, and that also supports the thesis of the vote jump in the aisle. Oftentimes when I look at this election as we look at right now, it was really a stormy relationship between Isaac and Sandy that really made the difference between the Romney 47 and the Obama 47. And that 6% in the middle, they just simply, when that storm came in, shifted all over to Obama in that last 5 days of the election. Because elections are really all about moments.
It's interesting that you say that, very interesting, because of the reaction that President Bush got to Katrina. And, Kanye saying, Bush doesn't care about black people, and yet President Obama was criticized by many for his response or lack thereof or whatever you might want to call it. And so it was very interesting to see how race maybe has shaped perception or it's just a weird thing how people take these moments, as you well state, and turn them into something that may or may not be there and run with it.
Yeah, now, go on, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
The moment even took an interesting twist for me personally because I was asked to debate the aftermath of Sandy in addressing the question, can private business have a larger role in disaster recovery? And my debate was with Michael Brown himself, who was the former FEMA director for Bush at the time of Katrina. And the debate is really moving very, very rapidly on the website DEEYOON.com, DEEYOON.com. It's a new social debating network website, and it's very, very exciting. But the interesting thing, the reason the debate is getting so many views is well up to about 2,200 views now. We did the debate on November 8th. But the reason it's getting so many views is because the question of disaster recovery is extremely important, particularly given that Katrina cost American society $100 billion. Well, Sandy, which Katrina was a Category 5 storm, and Sandy, which was a Category 1 storm, is costing $50 billion. Well, what's the difference? Well, it's $50 billion, but at the time of Katrina, we didn't have social networking. We didn't have strong presence of Facebook and people could communicate. But in Sandy, the difference was that the social networks still stayed alive even as we were going through the midst of the disaster. And that really reduced the cost of disaster recovery. And that's sort of the things we're talking about in that debate. And that's why it's garnering so much interest on the social networks.
Now, you wrote of your reaction when you stated that you would not be supporting President Obama, quote, that my family was stunned by my decision. My students at Howard University thought I had lost my way. My friends thought I was a turncoat. Some called me an Uncle Tom. Welcome to the club. Which is about the worst insult you can give a black man. B.B. King once said that playing the blues and being black was like being black twice. Well, try being a black Republican, a minority that's so harshly judged that people think we must be deluded or brainwashed, end quote. At a time in which we see African-American audience members standing up and applaud at a comedian's suggestion, as Jamie Foxx did. I'm not going to say what he said. The rant that got missed while I was on mute and having the technical problems was about the blog post I wrote about what Jamie Foxx had to say. It's not surprising that someone who opposes the political views of President Obama should face this level of bewilderment, criticism, and hostility. But do you expect the outcast status of African-American conservatives to ever change? What can bring about the change?
Well, I think that we're going to see in the post-Obama era, in 2016, 2020, even going on to 2076, which is America's tercentennial, which I closed the book with, we're going to see a new shift on how the black community, the Latino community, and the Reagan Democrats, some call it the Democrats, begin to see how we're shaping out in what I call the steep forces, the social, technological, educational, economic, and political forces. And if we think that those forces are going to be the same on what we've seen in this current election as we go on to future elections, we're highly underestimating the American electorate, and we're also underestimating American society. Technology itself is going to change how we see that steep social fabric. And when that steep social fabric does change, how would we be talking about black progressives or black conservatives then? It won't make any sense. We will some different types of words to describe who we are. So to vilify or to marginalize or even to celebrate or to deify one particular aspect that makes the social fabric of an element or a populace who represents that social fabric is illogical, because our words create our world. And as we move into different worlds, moving beyond 2016 in the post-Obama era into 2020 on to 2076, that will be a different world which will create different words, and that will be different sessions. So I see the future, what we see in black conservatism or in black progressivism, will be changing. Right now, make one thing that I would like for us all to be aware of. I believe, as a black community, blacks are conservative.
Oh, yeah.
We are conservative in our pocketbook.
Absolutely.
We're conservative in our education.
Socially. Yeah.
We're conservative in how we socialize.
Exactly.
The black church is one of the most conservative institutions in the country. We're conservative in our historically black colleges and universities.
Yes.
They're very, very conservative institutions. And I'm at Howard University. Howard University is a very conservative institution.
Yes.
What is black conservatism? It's black culture.
Yeah. Yeah. I absolutely agree with what you're saying.